Hi, welcome to #GotMoney. I'm Elizabeth Jackson. So, the landscape in this environment, I'm saying this every week now, is rampant and it moves quickly and things can change from one day to the next unexpectedly. And hence, I have invited Cate Bakos from Cate Bakos Real Estate to join us this evening. Cate, I was looking at your Facebook page the other day and you never have the face of fury.
Yeah, I was a bit troubled.
Yeah, maybe troubled. Let's run with troubled. You had a face that was troubled, and I was troubled by you being troubled. What's been going on out there, Cate? Share it with us.
We've had obviously the increase in social distancing requirements to, help everyone get through this, because real estate isn't immune from it either. We've gone from restrictions on auctions and public open for inspections all the way through now to very controlled, privately arranged inspections and no public auctions. So we've read a lot in the paper about online auctions and how agents are facilitating the deals, but we haven't heard an awful lot about how agents are facilitating taking buyers through properties, because we still have a lot of buyers out there that, despite current belief, are out there shopping for property, and they might be people that are not impacted by COVID. They could be essential services workers, they could be upgraders who have sold their house and need a roof over their heads, people that want to get their kids into a school zone, someone expecting a baby. The list goes on. So there's buyers out there, and the way in which they were able to view properties as at last week was by private appointment. So they had to call the agent, express that they were interested, probably answer quite a lot of questions, because then the agent has to go back to their vendor and say, hey, I've got this buyer. They sound really genuine to me. They've got pre-approval. They've been searching for XYZ. This house has all of the attributes. They're keen to inspect. And then the vendor would probably go into a flurry and clean the house and get themselves out, have a social isolation walk with the dog. And by the time I get to the property with the client, we've got our hand sanitizer, our gloves, our masks, and we're only allowed to have 2 people inside the property at once. So if I'm there with our client, the agent stands out the front, usually with their foot holding the door open, and lets the 2 of us go through. And if I've got a couple that want to see the house, either they go through first and I see it second, or they tag team it with me. So it's been a juggle that's been very easy for us to accommodate, because it's the right thing to do for these vendors. And on Thursday night, leading into an Easter weekend, so it was our last day of the week on Thursday, at 4:59, Consumer Affairs issued a notice to all Victorian real estate agents saying that from here going forward, no occupied property, whether it's owner-occupied or tenanted, can be inspected by a buyer at all. So whether it be... Yeah, well, that was my scary face.
That's where that came from. Okay.
Yeah. And so this thing has hit our inbox. And of course, by the time we've all digested it, it's 5:01. And there's probably a note at the bottom of it saying, any questions, give us a buzz on, 1-800 Consumer Affairs. But they're closed.
Consumer Affairs nowhere. Yeah, I bet they're closed.
until Tuesday. And so then, the chat's gone wild and Facebook's going right off tap and everyone's asking me, what does this mean? And it means what it says. We can't go through occupied properties. So the only properties that could be privately arranged to inspect by a buyer are vacant properties. And so, of course, we had to go through our inspection list and work out what's vacant, what's occupied, what's tenanted, cancel appointments, push them back to next week, arrange with the clients that were open to it to have me inspect and video it. Very awkward for any buyer, but particularly a first home buyer, to make a purchase decision off someone else's video. And so, of course, what this did for every agent that had any inspections planned on the weekend was it probably ruined their weekend, because they had to manage vendors that were upset and buyers that were upset and legislation changes that were thrust upon them that were not easy to understand. And it was a really tough weekend. And the backlash was enormous. It wasn't only me with sad face. The REIV were fantastic. They got right behind it. They petitioned, they contacted the minister. They had some really well-worded communications. They obviously gave the minister's office enough confidence that we could still handle doing this with, all of the right precautions in place, but to continue on as we had been. So the amazing thing about this was over a 4-day long weekend, they managed to overturn this on Easter Monday at midday. So not even an operational normal day at work, and they've managed to get this change through. And of course, the Consumer Affairs notification on Monday was a really happy one. But there are a few things that we have to be mindful of, and I think they're changes that are really tough to accept, but we have to.
What are they?
If tenants don't want someone through their property, then a tenant's not really going to get excited about allowing some random to walk through their house and potentially introduce coronavirus. And they're within their rights to say no. And unless the tenant is incentivized to say yes, or they're not stressed about it, or they're feeling that they want to do the right thing by their landlord, the tenant will probably say no. So for any agent that's trying to sell a tenanted property, and for any landlord who's selling their tenanted property, it's a pretty hard and rugged path right now. But for any owner who's selling their property, and this was probably where the outcry really struck, if they're selling their property in this environment, it's most likely because they have to sell. I don't know a single owner who's just, trying it on and shooting the breeze and seeing how they go with a sale. Anyone that's out there battling this has to sell, and they might have to sell because they've got financial worries. They might have to sell because they already bought a property before coronavirus hit, and now they have to sell their current home in order to make settlement. And they're probably my biggest concerns as a contingent. A vendor who's bought something and can't deal or isn't eligible for bridging finance and has to settle in order to make their new settlement. What a nightmare to have to wade through and then be told by their agent, despite all of your best cleaning efforts, I'm not allowed to bring a buyer through your house. It would be a devastating blow.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You just can't, I do off the plan real estate, right? As you know, so I didn't really dig into what was going on in that respect, and just hearing you articulate it, because there will be people out there that have already committed to other properties, and the urgency for them is that they get out, they get and they move on, and they're not going to want to do it. This is not the right environment for them to even consider moving, let alone having to sell their own home.
It's horrible. And the concern that I had with this, we can call it a policy, I thought it was a really badly thought out knee jerk, and thankfully it's been sorted out. But the concern I had was it will create some terrible things. The first and most benign thing that it could have created is vendors who choose to lie, to tell their agent, oh look, don't worry about it, we've moved out, take anyone through. And then the second thing is that they might think, I've got to get out of my house because I have to have it sold, so we need to vacate, and so we'll move in with family. So you're introducing risk potentially to older family members or younger children or whatever. And then the third thing is that it could cause people who can't sell to miss their settlement, be in default of their purchase, and lose their 10% and face legal action. And
oh my God.
That's not what I think any government would wish on anyone. So
why did they not? So back to Consumer Affairs, it sounds like they didn't get the advice of any specialist before they made that decision.
Yeah, from the communication that I've been reading, which is pretty publicly available and on lots of group chats and everything, there wasn't a consultation late last week. And there should have been, to talk to an industry body like the REIV and say, hey, what do you guys think? How do we tackle this? What are your ideas? They could have thrashed out something. And I think that the issue that everyone had was really the timing, the lack of consultation, and the Thursday night thing, just not how you play cricket when you're dealing with people's commercial decisions that are really important.
People are under enough stress as it is. And I tell you what, though, it was really great that the REIV got into the middle of that, because there would have been a lot of really uncomfortable phone calls during that weekend. And I think
absolutely.
probably an embarrassed minister. You kind of...
I hope so.
So talk to me about the outcome of that. So what have they decided to do?
They've decided that we're allowed to be one at a time through a property, and it's got to be with the permission of the resident. So if the tenant says no, the tenant says no. If we're talking about owner-occupied homes, though, we have to comply with all of the social isolation measures. So we've got to manage cleanliness. If we're worrying about where all of the disinfectant and hand sanitizer's gone, I reckon it's with all of the listing agents because they're sharing it out very generously. You will not go through a property with a real estate agent without being offered copious amounts of hand sanitizer. We've got gloves. I've got masks if I wish to use them. We don't touch anything. And the protocols are very similar to what they were last week.
Okay, so not much has changed other than it's a shame about the tenants. That's a shame, but I guess you're very, very restricted. Are we going to see this continue long term? Is this going to be the environment for the next 3 months, 4 months?
It's a really interesting one. I can only look in my own crystal ball and share what Cate Bakos reckons, because there are so many different opinions out there. I do look at what the numbers are saying in terms of infections and treatments and how many people are getting this and moving through it, how many we have hospitalised, and they keep referring to the curve, which is a great measure. The reality is that with the numbers of people that have been infected by this and then the number that are now in recovery, our active cases seem to be demonstrating a really attractive line on the chart. And if we continue to do that, and even with our minister's declaration that they'll increase testing regimes now for Victorians, and they'll test everyone who believes they have symptoms rather than people that fit a criteria of things like have symptoms, have been around someone that's have travelled themselves. We're going to be more generous with our testing regime now. And so I think once that filters through, if the numbers still look good and we make a deliberate decision to watch cases and to trace people that have been in contact, there's even talk of an app that they're looking at releasing so that Victorians who wish to participate, if our numbers support the decline that we're experiencing, I think that we will have a relaxation. And
good.
Anyone will agree with that. The question is when. Now, we were told only a few days ago that they've extended the state of emergency and the stage 3 restrictions to the 11th of May. And I would be surprised if they went back on that. I think we have to assume that until then it is business as usual, as we've got used to right now. But after that, though, I anticipate that we'll see some relaxation, and it won't be sudden and it won't be everything. It might be that cafes are allowed to have people sitting inside if they're distanced by X meters. It might be that, real estate agents are allowed to take groups of up to 4 people through. It could be anything. We don't know. But I think it will be a gentle relaxation, and that they've got to keep testing the model and making sure that the numbers aren't jetting up as well.
There are buyers out there that are looking for bargains. Are you noticing an increase in those purchases? And what are they doing? What are they up to?
So I'm noticing an increase in bargain hunting purchases, and I'm not noticing an increase in bargains. So what that says is, and particularly the price points that I'm dealing with. So let's talk about that, because I'm not in the higher quartile bracket. There are buyers agents out there that deal in luxury properties and properties over $2 or $3 or $4 million. If I get a client brief over $3 million, that's a doozy of a brief, and I don't get them all the time. I might get 3 or 4 of those a year, and there are buyers agents that deal with those exclusively. I deal with buyers that are investors with budgets ranging from, at the moment I've got someone who's at 350. We're shopping for a villa unit in Geelong with a really attractive rental yield. I sometimes buy in Ballarat with that kind of budget, and then I'm dealing with first home buyers who are sort of getting uncomfortable over the 650 mark. So I deal in bottom quartile. I'm generally though in the median part of the bell curve. So homeowners, I'm probably looking at anything from 550 up to maybe 1.8. That's my typical spend. So when I look at those price points out there, I did have a couple of bargain buys, and they were 2 weeks ago, and that was when everything was unknown and everyone was freaking out. All the headlines were only about corona, not even a hint of George Pell. It was just all corona, and everyone was freaked. I know that's another topic.
Pre-Bell. Yeah, I like
Pre-Bell. Yeah, so at that stage, you know, it could be argued that those who were freaking out were at their highest levels of freak out, because we didn't have answers and we didn't know how long this thing would go for. And I had a couple of vendors, agents reached out and said to me, I've got these vendors that they want it sold by Friday. They're convinced we're going to go into total lockdown. New Zealand have just done it. Just get us a buy, make me an offer, any offer. And to get something like that thrown on your table, that's a...
As an advocate. So let's get clear. Kate's an advocate.
I'm an advocate.
She works for the buyer. Yeah,
part of me thinks, yeah, I'm going to get my buyer a great result. And the other part of me thinks, oh my goodness, like this poor vendor, and am I missing something? You know, things felt awful, but they didn't feel dire. We were still getting support packages being announced, and I could see that we were headed for tough times, but I hadn't envisaged someone saying, I want this sold in 2 days, make me an offer, any offer. So of course I did. I bought a couple of bargains, but that was the context of my bargain buying. And since then, lots of shoppers out there looking for bargains, and arguably at the $2 million plus level, there are some good buys, because not everyone has a spare 2 mil right now.
Yeah.
But at the 350 to 1.5 range, I haven't really had bargains being thrown at me, but I've had a lot of buyers saying I'm only interested in buying if I can get an ultra bargain.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because what happens at the other side of this, and I don't know if this was a discussion I had with you or somebody else the other day, you and I have seen 2 years of relatively soft markets.
Yeah.
And it's almost like somebody trying to hold up a waterfall with a piece of cardboard. Our build rate has gone soft over the last 2 years, so we're not supplying enough new properties to the market to meet the demand. And once we get to the other side of this, we're going to see real estate increase exponentially and beyond anyone's reason, because we still have, up to the coronavirus, 300 people a day moving into the state. Now, you have to house them. It's a rule. They all want a roof over their head. I think we're in a lockout market. I understand that people don't want to move and they don't want to buy if they don't have to, except for those bargain hunters. And I have a few of those come over my desk. But I think the other side of this, if you can be still and sensible, the recovery in this, I think, will be really good. What are your thoughts, Kate?
Yeah, I think that people who were active in the market at this time last year need to remember what happened when Scott Morrison got in and stock levels were still very low. And right now stock levels are low, because who would want to try and sell during this? It's a pretty hard task.
Yeah.
And there'll be buyers that sit tight, or sellers that sit tight and hold on to their titles and choose not to sell for a while. And when the buyers see the green shoots and come back and we haven't got enough stock for them, I think we'll see that stock imbalance underpin value staying reasonably firm. And then when confidence is back, we'll see values getting driven. That's what I do believe. But I think there'll be segments of the market that are more susceptible to price increases than others. And there will still be some between now and proper recovery, proper economic recovery, that don't do so well. And they're your lifestyle properties, you're not urgent and not needed properties. So the ones that someone in trouble with, margin calls and business debts and cash flow shortfalls says, let's sell the holiday house because we can't, nobody can live in it.
Yeah, exactly right. That was just thinking that. It is holiday house selling time. I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great time to go to the coast and pick up one of those little batches.
I remember after the GFC, I went down to, my mother-in-law's down in Cowes, and we drove down to see her after the GFC, and all those coastal properties with for sale signs. It was such a shock, and that was a good lesson for me to see, because when clients say I really want a holiday, it's an investment decision, I make them understand it's not an investment, it's a lifestyle property.
Yes.
Only do it when you're insulated enough to do it.
Exactly right. Some good news though, Kate. I got a call from some of the not-for-profit organisations, and the government are just about to package a huge stimulus, and it's called Shovel Ready. So they're buying up real estate. They're buying up real estate because they understand that the biggest industry in Australia is construction, and they want the wheels on that to continue turning.
Wow.
So we submitted 300 properties to them the other day, all fingers and toes across. So government understand and realise that that's an industry it wants to take care of, and it's working towards that aggressively, which is good news. Thank you for joining me today. If anything else comes up, will you please let me know?
Buzz you every hour. That's how often things are coming up.
Just take a photo and send it to me.
Yeah,
don't even post it, just send me a photo.
I love sharing our updates. Now in your, you've just mentioned Shovel
Ready.
What else are you seeing in the new home space? I know that we've mentioned bargain hunters out there, but have we still got, how's House and Land looking?
Good. It's really strong. We've got a lot of first-time home buyers circulating the market at the moment. And the first thing I ask, which I'm really mindful of, is what's their employment and what does that look like for them in the long term? Yeah. We had Nikki Huntley on a couple of weeks ago, and she's talking about large unemployment moving forward. So I'm really mindful that I check into longevity for the clients before we start the process of trying to find them stock. But that marketplace is actually really strong, which is fantastic. And lots of interesting conversations with land estate owners, because what we're trying to do, Kate, is we're trying to say, okay, I know that the land developers want to continue selling land, and I know that the builders want to continue building. So I'm packaging a design where if my landowner contributes some money towards the client's deposit, and my developer contributes some money towards the client's deposit, then we have full deposit. And awesome. These clients ordinarily wouldn't be able to do this because there's been a lack of generosity in that marketplace, because that marketplace has always done so well and has always been so buoyant. So we're working with some really great land estates, and we're working with some really great builders who deliver good products. The other side of it too is, there are hundreds and hundreds of builders. And it's about ensuring that we hand select the right builder. And the right builder is someone that has enough liquidity behind them that they can be that generous inside that purchase. So we're doing a lot of that, which I love. Zero deposits. We're working with one of the largest builders in Australia doing zero deposit houses. And, I think the landscape that we're in right now, considering there's a virus on the ground, I don't want to take away from the significance of that, but we would not have opportunities like that if we weren't in this event. And I don't like the event, and particularly people that are unwell, and my heart goes out to them. But the other side of this is that I've got responsible, large developers that are wanting to help first-time home buyers. And those, we have high divorce rates here in Australia, about helping those that are single now that use their first-time home buyers grant into real estate. So that's what we're doing, and I'm doing a lot of it, which is a blessing, really. It's a blessing.
It's a legacy.
It's a legacy, isn't it? Yeah, it's pretty cool, Kate. My friend, thank you so much. All the best. I'm going to get you and Hayley on next. I think that would be kind of fun.
Oh, I can't wait. I love Miss Hayley.
Yeah, she's a goodie, isn't she? She was on last week.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be in touch with you in the next 10 days, okay? And then we'll do another one of these.
Yay.
Yay.
Right. Thank you for having me on.
Pleasure. Take care.
See you soon.
Bye.